Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our second informational podcast. This is Konstantin Alkandros. I'll be hosting this podcast on behalf of Alkandros Capital Management. Today's basically just another overview, kind of the market, what's happening. We won't go into too much depth. After all, this is sort of a Sunday night podcast, so there's really no activity or not very much. At least not not directly related to the stock exchange, but at least there obviously are things still happening out there in the world that affect the economy, even on weekends. So I won't do a general rundown on the market. That's something I covered on Friday night. I think I'll just talk generally about the market and kind of what's happening, what to expect in the future and whatnot. So. Currently, as I mentioned on Friday night, the market's down. There's a lot of selling, so there's obviously a lot of people that are not very optimistic about the future of the economy and the market, and so there's a lot of people selling out in order to negate any further losses. So there's a bit of panic selling out there, more to do with reducing losses than actual fear. So it's fear of losses, not fear of the end of the world or anything like that. So lots of people getting out of positions in companies in order to avoid any kind of further losses. So it's So it's a bit. There's not a lot of upward movement. If there is, it's very little, and it's only with some companies, not others. So it's a bit of a downward trend right now. We're going through this due to coronavirus, which, as in some places more than others, severely crippled economic activity, especially with China, in particular China. China suffered the brunt of the consequences of the coronavirus. And of course, Australia has suffered a fair bit because of that, since the two countries are quite close in regards to commerce and economic trade and activity. For at this point, I think honestly, I believe the coronavirus is just another repeat of SARS, bird flu, swine flu. We've been through this before. I think coronavirus, quite frankly, and Ebola. Ebola was supposed to be this really horrible disease that was going to wipe out a lot of people. That was no cure for it, or at least I don't think there certainly was no vaccine for Ebola, and there wasn't. It was treatable, but Ebola, quite frankly, really fizzled out. Honestly, I'm surprised by the amount of attention coronavirus is getting, because quite frankly, it doesn't seem like a very deadly disease to me. A lot of people, I think the percentage of fatalities to the amount of people who've caught the disease is quite low. So I do feel the media I got a feeling there's a deliberate attempt to panic the public. And I do believe that there is an overreaction on the part of governments to some degree not so much in their actual measures and trying to reduce the disease, but in the way they are. It's more the rhetoric. The governments. I've got no problem with quarantine. I think quarantine you need quarantine, but there does seem to be a lot of alarmism on the part of government saying, stock your shelves and you need make sure you have supplies of food for 2 weeks. It's a bit ridiculous. Quite frankly, this is not an apocalyptic event. This is, this is just Corona is just another string. It's just another disease in a long line of diseases that come and go that we've been through the last decade and a half. So, I think there's a lot of the stock market is down because I believe that there's a lot of panic and fear that's been created by the media, and that in turn has affected the stock market and the economies of the world. So it's a good time to buy. As the saying goes, millionaires are made in depression. So obviously this is a great time to buy into. Except with the way the market seems to be going, it's not so much panic selling. There is selling, but there's just not a lot of. There seems to be the market seems to be more stagnant than it is falling. It's falling, but not by much. There's not these. You don't see that many massive drops. So it's more stagnant, which I don't really like. To be honest, I much prefer it either go really high, really low. When it's stagnant, it's hard to buy in, hard to get out. So it's much better when there's a lot of activity. So it's really so because of coronavirus, it's hurt the activity. It's hard to really, although it's good to buy in now because stock prices are falling due to the economic activity, but there's just not a lot of movement day to day. So it makes it tricky to get in and get out. So you're going to probably have to pick your points, pick the stock you're looking for, and it'd be advisable to really do your research and pick something that's going to be easy to get in and easy to get out in the current state. So you can't just throw your money here or take a chance on this or that. So you're going to have to take You're going to have to take a cautious approach. Not that you shouldn't be cautious at all when it comes to stock trading or financial trading, but more so now than ever. So that's how things seem to be so far in the world of finance. It's really hard to tell when the market will return to equilibrium. I was sort of, as I said I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast, it looked like the market was starting to turn up. And now it just seems to have just dropped again. So, there was a bit of a ray of sunshine about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, but it seems like the coronavirus, because the corona is still lingering, there still seems to be a bit of lack of faith, long-term faith at this point. So it looks like the market could still be stagnant. Probably, I would say, for probably another maybe month, it looks like. So it could be another month before we start to see some confidence return. So tomorrow, the markets will open. We'll see, I guess, what happens. I predict it's going to be just another sell-off, if not just more stagnation. I think that's probably it for today. I think we'll keep it short and sweet. I think future podcasts will go into a bit more depth. I'll try and take a bit more of a comprehensive look across the world. Maybe look at some news headlines, and maybe analyze those. But we'll leave it at that. We'll leave our report the way it is for today. And stay tuned for the next podcast. If you have any questions or would just like to contact me about investing with our company, Alcandros Capital Management, of course, you're more than welcome, of course, to contact me and us through our Facebook page or Instagram. There's also my number there that's listed, so you can WhatsApp me. I much prefer to be WhatsApped, as I use that quite a lot to talk with clients, and of course Messenger as well. So, on behalf of Alcandros Capital Management, this is Konstantin Kai Alcandros signing out. Thanks for listening.